Elias, thank you so much for this latest issue in Ownership Matters. Tell us what you're profiling.
Hey, yeah, this is a good issue. We've got three big things going on here. We have a movement network, we have a book, a great book, and we have a fund, a really interesting fund.
Well, let's dive into kind of the capital hackers at Zebras Unite here.
Yeah, the capital hackers. This is an amazing network, now about 5 years old, and it came out of the experience of some women founders who had a bad experience with Silicon Valley and venture capital and realized that they were not alone in the world. And so they got together, they organized, they published some brilliant writing, some manifestos about their experience, and they wanted to find founders of a different stripe. So a zebra is like the opposite of a unicorn. And so Silicon Valley people know what a unicorn is, that rare animal that's going to make all this money. But a zebra is kind of like a multicolored herd animal, a communal animal, and a different animal of a different stripe for sure. So zebras are about a different view of capitalism, a different view of investing. They like to say they're about community, capital, and culture. So they're trying to change all of those. And they've reached 8,000 members now globally. So they're not fooling around. And so they do a very high quality job of talking about this, providing a kind of a public forum where founders and funders go to meet each other, learn more, and kind of catch some of the wave of financial and social innovation that's going on. And the Zebras have a wonderful leadership team that's making this happen. One of their founders is Astrid Schultz, a PhD economist from Berkeley, who has a very interesting business background and talks us through some of their work, which includes also something called the Inclusive Capital Collective, which is a wonderful interracial project around funding Black businesses in 2 or 3 major cities around the country.
And Astrid's used that future economy lab model that she built the Inclusive Capital Collective, collaborated with others around, to now bring it to the National Cooperative Bank and National Cooperative Business Association, trying to convene this Principle 6 initiative of how do we power collaborative facilitation design and creating new financial mechanisms that can support these businesses of a different stripe, like you said. And I think it's so clear that they've had this exit to community initiative with Nathan Schneider and University of Colorado about how do we not just exit to investors and as entrepreneurs, but how do we have the business and creative enterprises be shared by community and owned by community, different kind of ownership and governance. So Such a clear example of one of the amazing movements growing rapidly. Let's hear about Catholic economics here, Antonia Network.
All right. Well, actually, let me jump to the fund first, because it's connected to the Zebras in a certain way in terms of financial innovation. Good Scout Capital. This is like what happens when a community organizer meets a private equity person. What happens? You get Good Scout Capital. These people are building a fund to buy smaller businesses and basically refinance them with a 20% ownership floor built in for the employees. This is not normally the way private equity works. They are very interested in the ESGs, that kind of investing, which is a big wave. The E part of it is very well known in the investing world. And Carlo Marcello, one of their partners, was explaining it's the S part, the social investing, that is not so well known, not so documented, and where they want to do some experimenting. So their model is to create kind of shared services on the back end, and then put together a portfolio of businesses with a kind of a diverse mix so that the returns are high enough to interest, sort of mainstream investors. On the other hand, given the background of Rupal Patel, the other partner in community organizing, particularly in farm labor services, you've got businesses that are sweaty. I love the way they describe this. They're talking about businesses that are lower margin, that are employ, people that are going to make a smaller kind of wage and are very often manual, but they are doing a great job at trying to target those in a mix in their portfolio that will kind of lift up the whole business.
One of the pieces I really appreciate is we've seen a lot of employee ownership focused funds that are converting existing businesses to employee owned businesses. Their particular focus is on small and medium enterprises that are growing, right?
Yes,
and so they're trying to build this cohort that isn't just about business conversions of ones that are already successful and have great cash flow and have, low risk. They're saying, how do we share in the upside as an entrepreneur grows, to say there's a lot more potential when the employees are part of that, owning with you that up in these sweaty enterprises, especially where people are such a huge part of the business. Farm labor as their California harvesters example, but catering, they have a number of others that are even in tech. And so it's a variety of industries they're focused on, but all with this sweaty focus.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting because it's not a silver tsunami kind of strategy. It is more like an accelerator, which is really interesting. So somebody's trying that model as well. It's like there's all these different ways to do it, but Good Scout is proposing, they're new, they're just putting the fund together now, that they're proposing a new and different model that I think could be really super interesting.
And each of them are super accomplished as organizers, like you said, in their own right, finding political candidates, supporting them. And so I can almost imagine that kind of experience that Carlo has applying to these founders and these, small business directors, as like empowering their leadership in a way that I think can have the kind of private equity, return profile, hopefully. But they have an interesting two classes of shares. And so lots of interesting things in their fund designed to that make it, I think, useful for people from the philanthropic side, validating their thesis, and also people from their investor side. And just super grateful for that example.
Very cool.
Turn us to the next big issue here in economics.
A guy we know, Tony Annett, a former IMF economist. He is now no longer with the organization, but he used all of his great training and background and experience, and the fact that he's a serious Catholic, to write a book with a kind of a funny title, Cathonomics, which advances the proposition that there is, in a way, such a thing as Catholic economics, which we are taught to understand could not be. That, there's no way you can brand a field like economics any more than you could brand, algebra or something. And Tony says this is not exactly true historically. So he goes back through the social encyclicals going back 130 years and explains that those of us that are in search of an alternative framework at this moment in our multiple crises need to take a look at a very old one, an extremely old one, which is not well known much anymore in this country in particular, but goes very deep. It is not the exclusive property of Catholics. All of the elements in it are shared by cultures worldwide, really. But if you want to talk about, the common good, integral human development, integral ecology, solidarity, subsidiarity, reciprocity, the universal destination of goods, these are all sort of benchmark ideas that were one time part of the traditional economies of really most cultures worldwide. So since the Industrial Revolution, since the rise of capitalism, they faded out because they don't serve the purposes of the new framework. So now that the new framework is on fire, maybe we need to find a way to replace it. And Tony is saying, the newest thing we could do is look at something very old.
It's so helpful, the book, and I think also Tony's initiative to help reform economics education in in business schools and Catholic universities today. And what I appreciate most is the clear language around neoclassical theory, naming how our economic theory has progressed over the past century and how it's gotten us some great things to describe certain phenomena, but it's lost so much too. And I think grounding it in these encyclicals and in this Catholic tradition helps recover different notions of human nature and the common good, and how we can embody solidarity and subsidiarity through our economic praxis. So
absolutely. Tony does a great job of bringing it into conversation with what's going on today. For example, the UN's SDGs and the way in which Pope Francis's encyclicals line up and are in conversation with those NDGs in a really interesting way.
And Elias, tell us where we're at Ownership Matters as a newsletter. You got some good feedback. You profiled the beginning of the issue. What are you hearing? Where are we at?
We have this very, engaged, fired up group of readers. I get the idea that there's nobody that's a newbie. Everybody's way into this. Although that can't quite be true. We're not all just completely wonky, but it did inspire us to talk internally about a way of creating a kind of a feedback mechanism where editors could post just casually an idea or a comment or a video or an audio clip in a special spot on our website called the Editor Reader Circle. So we're about to launch that, send out an email introducing it. And so our editors are going to start posting there. And for the first time, readers can directly respond and comment and get engaged with our editors, which I think could be a fun and interesting way to kind of deepen the conversation.
And just two more points of affirmation. You've said the best newsletter and analysis in my inbox currently was one of the reader comments you got. Congratulations, you're the best at what you do. And just a personal note, Kyle, a co-op entrepreneur in Chicago building the Business Services Collective, said it's the first thing he loves reading. It's one of the only newsletters he reads. So just off to you, Elias, with the incredible work for you and the team at Ownership Matters. Thanks for a great issue again.
Sure.